it's an incredible time for anyone to be able to set up a business because we have all this software and tools that enable us to compete with much larger companies which just didn't exist before.
Just to add to that, like I think software and particularly AI are good to help work with humans. I don't think it'll ever take over our jobs.
When you're the founder of a company, you're problem solving something every single day. So I think you become more skilled at solving problems quickly, effectively. Very, very first time we met, Gyve was working for the head of this. I was like, how on earth do you get this done? And he was like, oh, look, and he showed me these hacks. And I was like, this guy is a genius. If you could own any company in the world right now, right? Which company would you like to own and be the
City A.M.
City A.M. Today, Emmanuel and I are going to talk with some people about how many times we throw away our toothbrush each year. So I find it a very interesting topic because the two guests that are joining us, their names are Mark Rushmore and Gyve Safavi, and they've invented a sustainable toothbrush that is nearly completely sustainable, recyclable. And they're one of the first people that have done it, and it's electric. So it's quite cool. We're going to show you some products at the end and during it and kind of look through how it works. I don't know, Emmanuel, what do you think is going to come up?
I mean, I've never used an electric toothbrush in my life. So this is going to be a very brand new, fresh experience for me. I'm excited. It's sustainable. I've wasted too many toothbrush.
You don't think about it until someone asks you how many you would throw away.
You did like a quick survey in the office where you're asking people.
I did my own survey,
Yeah, so Jenny was asking people how many times we throw away, or how often we throw away our toothbrush.
Yeah, how many times a year?
And for me, it's probably like every month or two.
Yeah.
I'm pretty I'm pretty
hygienic
when it comes to my toothbrush. I throw away every 2 months, which is bad for the environment because apparently it's not recyclable.
So recyclable. They you think they are, and then people in the recycling units, they'll just sort them out into the trash anyway. So even if you put it in the recycling, they're not going to make it into the recycling because they're just not recyclable. But they're a fast-growing company. They started 2 years ago, and I think last year they reached about 10 million in sales. So we're going to talk to them about how they did it.
Yeah, and then who they are, if they like, pizza or burgers, how often they brush their teeth.
Their favorite part about brushing their teeth.
Yeah, why they decided to start a toothbrush company out of, anything that you could start. That's pretty interesting, I think. Because I wouldn't think of starting a toothbrush company.
No, ideas are weird, aren't they?
Yeah.
But they work, so.
Well, that's why I'm an entrepreneur. So.
Yeah. So, Mark and Gyve, you guys have co-founded a pretty interesting toothbrush brand. To my knowledge, it's sustainable. We've spoken before for one of my other interviews, and now we're going to share with the rest of the world what you guys do and what you love most about it. So tell me a little bit about yourselves, whoever wants to start first.
So my name's Mark. I grew up in Scotland, and then after university, I started my career at Procter Gamble, who make lots of consumer goods, so like Gillette and Pampers. I was working on Pringles in a variety of sales and strategy roles before I moved to Kellogg's. And then after that, I actually went on some adventures. I decided that life was short and I wanted to do some things, rather than wait until I retired. So I became a ski instructor in Canada. Then I cycled from Canada to Mexico. Then I won a social media competition to take part in a round the world yacht race, the Clipper race. But then during training, I became ill, and I thought, I've always wanted to set up a company. So I wrote down a list of companies I'd love to own, Google and Facebook and so on.
All the big ones.
But also like a small experiential agency that I'd worked with during my time at P&G. And so I contacted them and said, look, I'd like to help you whilst I'm working at what to do myself. And they said, actually, why don't you join as a partner? So I became a partner of an experiential marketing agency, and I set up the London office, and I scaled that through to an exit. And during that time, I won Oral-B as a client, so I learned a lot about the dental industry. And more importantly, during that time, I was really lucky to meet this guy at an industry event. And we just got chatting, and unbeknown to me, Gyve also had worked at P&G, but in the Geneva office. Maybe I hand over to you.
We'd never met, so I started at Procter Gamble, worked there for about 8 years in Geneva. Mark was in the UK. I worked in finance and then marketing, and then selling female shaving care to women across EMEA. And then I moved to a company called IPP, a large advertising holding company. I worked with the founder at the time, and then in business development. And then I moved to a digital agency called AKQA. And after that, I moved to a venture company called Mirma Ventures, where I worked for about 2 years, working on various startups. And I think once you work at a startup, you kind of get a bug where it's really hard not to work at a startup. And then came COVID, and I decided to quit. And I knew I wanted to build something, but I didn't know. I thought it was going to take a few month vacation, and then got locked down. I ended up talking to Mark quite a lot, and we started just brainstorming what we wanted to do. And we knew whatever we had both had children around the same time. So I had my first daughter. Mark had his second child was a daughter also. And we knew whatever we started, we wanted to create something that would have a positive impact on their generation and generations to come. And so we started looking at SURI, short for Sustainable Rituals. And that's kind of the start of the beginning.
Yeah. I remember when we talked before, you guys mentioned that you literally went on a walk in the park to talk about toothbrushes. And I thought that was quite interesting because it's not really a topic that comes up when you're on a walk in the park. So was there anything else that you might have thought about making before toothbrushes, or was that kind of just the only idea that you were really going to go for as a sustainable toothbrush company?
So actually, after I saw my last company, I was looking into all sorts of different things. I actually started looking at jobs at one point, and basically employers were like, we can't employ you. Your background's so different from everyone else. So I thought, well, I better set up another company. But as we looked at different categories, I think it just became really, really clear that there's this enormous sustainability problem when it comes to toothbrushes. Over 4 billion toothbrushes, including electric ones, are thrown away every single year. And we even found out that virtually every toothbrush you've probably ever used since you were a child will exist somewhere for a long, long time because of the materials they're made out of. And so I think when we kind of realized the scale of that problem, it seemed like we need to dig into it further. And it was during digging into it further, we did surveys with thousands of consumers and dental professionals and sustainability experts. We also found out that there wasn't just an issue in terms of sustainability, but a lot of people also had other issues. So, people would complain, I hate my brush. I have to charge it every 2 days. It always dies of battery. I can't take it anywhere. I never take it abroad because it's so clunky. The case is big and heavy. I have a separate charger and it doesn't charge anyway, so I'm going to use a plastic manual one, which obviously is creating more waste. We asked people, do you use the apps? I don't know, do you guys use apps when you brush your teeth?
No, I don't. I
No.
have an electric toothbrush.
Right.
I have an electric
So this is a new experience for me.
Yeah.
You will.
Well, there's all these
An app.
Yeah, this is the thing, there's so many
So what does the app do?
Smiles at you.
Yeah.
Gives you a mirror, a portable mirror.
I mean, it does give you data, but I think that in today's world, we found that people didn't want another app for telling them how to brush their teeth. We were looking at making brushes more sustainable and solving that problem, but ultimately what we were hearing is people didn't enjoy brushing their teeth. And many people were like, yeah, I do it, but it's not really something I look forward to. It should be a ritual I enjoy, but it's really more a chore. And then as we started digging into it, part of it is the battery problem. They're very loud. They make a loud noise. And so we started optimizing for these features. So our brush was very quiet when it runs. And one of the ways we were testing is, could we hear each other talking to each other while we're brushing our teeth? And then also battery life. We don't have an app, as Mark was saying. And as a result, our battery life lasts around 40 days. We optimized things that we heard that people cared about, and then also focused on, I don't know, you want to talk about the brush heads, more sustainable materials.
If I'm being honest on the survey part of it, after I spoke with you guys for the first time and, looked into SURI more, I started my own survey in the office. So everybody here I've asked, or almost everybody.
We actually started asking all of
with
us
no context, I said,
it.
how many toothbrushes do you think are thrown away each year? Or how many times do you change your toothbrush? Everybody said, why are you asking me about my toothbrush?
And
I got curious.
Did you ask if they
how
recycle
often
them?
do you, how often do you change your toothbrush as well? That got everyone talking in your office.
Actually, surprisingly, a lot of people don't realize, they don't even think about throwing their toothbrush away. They just do it, or they don't remember to, which is they were so confused why I was asking.
Or they think they're recyclable, right?
Yeah.
And so many people are like, I put it in the recycling bin. That's what it's for. And they're not. I mean, they ultimately, because there's so many different components, a recycling plant will look at it and go, this is too small, too complex. It goes right into the waste, which is mad when you think about it. And it's a close second or third to plastic straws, but we don't ever talk about it.
And what's yours made out of?
So we have one here. So our heads are made from plant-based materials. The shaft of the head is made from cornstarch, and the bristles are made from castor oil. The body is made from aluminium, which is very highly recyclable, but also feels really premium in your hand. Then we've made our brush in a modular way so that we can take it apart, so that when it comes to end of life, we can ensure that it's dealt with responsibly, or we can sort of reuse components where necessary. Our packaging is also plastic free. We use FSC approved card and paper in all these different ways. We also have a case here. This case has a UV light there that kills 99.9% of bacteria. And we didn't bring it with us, but we also have a magnetic mirror mount. That's actually one of my favorite features. So you can just, using magnets, sit on your mirror and you don't get that gunk that accumulates on the bottom of other brushes.
Which is a big thing we heard in surveys. People are like, what's that gunk that we get?
Yeah, it's not pleasing.
It also,
I actually quite hate that.
it appears under the head too. And so we added a stainless steel plate here, so it's easy to wipe off. Whereas like plastic ones, it can get stuck in and grimy and turn yellow over time. Pretty nasty stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think mine has like a little rivet in it, so it does have like it gets stuck in it.
See,
So.
I don't have a
Yeah,
electric toothbrush, so so I wouldn't know. This is a whole new, like I said, it's a whole new experience for me, and I'm excited to, to get into the wave of electric toothbrush.
I think that's the other thing. The reason electric toothbrushes are so popular and growing is that dentists recommend them. Why do they recommend them? Because every clinical study will show that they're so much more effective at cleaning your teeth. So our brush, we went to Salus Research, one of the foremost research centers in the world, and this is clinically proven to provide a 5 times superior clean to a manual brush. So you'd have to brush 5 times as much to get the same
In one
clean
day.
as
So I would have to just
compare
Yeah,
one
switch
day.
up your routine now and start brushing 10 times a day.
Oh man, I'm definitely excited to clean my teeth better. Because I remember I was growing up as a kid. I think I was like 6 or 7 years old. I had really bad cavity at some point because I hated brushing and I ate way too much candy. So my dentist hated me. And so then I kind of quit chewing gum and eating candy, but I stuck to manual toothbrush. And I've always wanted to jump the ship to like electric toothbrush, but I don't know. I don't know why I never pulled the trigger.
What brand would you buy if you got an electric toothbrush before meeting them?
I was going to say, hold on a second.
Before meeting them.
I'm
That's
like
the kind of thing. It's going to
SURI.
segue into a good. No, it's
That's
going to
the
segue.
only brand
If you
that you
didn't
should
know
buy.
about SURI, what would you? Because immediately, if I'm being honest, my dentist recommended a toothbrush. I didn't know about you guys yet, and I just went and bought Oral-B. Like it was just the first toothbrush.
I think I
bought.
would have
had
just
like a
probably
coupon
done
for it. I
Oral-B.
got it, and
I've heard of them.
yeah.
You're like Oral-B?
That's another brand, is it?
Yeah. But it's interesting. The market is only dominated by like 2 major key players. And if you think about it, everybody brushes their teeth. Most people should brush their teeth. But,
And I would like to think everyone
You would like to
brushes
think. But,
Twice a day.
yeah, but
2 minutes.
it's really interesting. 'cause the only
twice
thing
a day.
The only thing I could think about people, tapping into a market that people use so much is like toilet paper of something of the sort. But that also has quite a lot of brands.
Loads of brands. I mean, there's also everyone wears shoes, or most people wear shoes. Like, again, a mass proliferation of companies that make shoes. But electric brushes, it's relatively different in this respect. That while there are several brands, like 2 really are dominant.
Yeah, it's pretty much just like Colgate and Oral-B.
Yeah.
I've been using Colgate forever.
The manual ones.
But now, now SURI. Okay, which camera am I looking at? Okay.
There's quite a lot of people who don't use electric toothbrushes, so probably around 50% of the UK, other major developed markets. And so when you think of that, there's so many people in the population brush their teeth, but not many use electric toothbrushes, or even though dentists recommend, and 50% is quite high. And one of the things we got from our surveys, people who do use electric toothbrushes and don't, is that they don't enjoy them. So as we looked at how do we make this a more enjoyable experience, I had cavities growing up, and I personally didn't like brushing my teeth as much, and really, we started seeing our Trustpilot reviews come back, and people were like, I love brushing my teeth now. I've never said that about a toothbrush before. This is strange. We focused primarily in the beginning on creating a more sustainable product. They gave a great clean and was design led. The aluminum body feels great in your hand, as Mark said. And as a result, we just ended up creating a product that gave people a better morning and evening ritual. And that is seen in our Trustpilot reviews. We're now the highest rated brand on Trustpilot, over 5,500 5-star reviews, 4.8, which there's every brand there. We also get tons of negative ones too, so I'm obviously painting the rosy picture, but it's and we read them all the time, and you get so many good insights from customers who leave you feedback, where they write us directly, and we're constantly changing our product to match. It's just as a hardware brand, it takes time. And so you take even everything like that we do, we're constantly iterating on it, whether we're using different inks on our packaging, to our mailers are totally home biodegradable. They're free recycling mailers. But it takes
we should probably
time.
explain how that works. So in addition to having better materials, once we're done with the head, we ask people to put 4 of them into these biodegradable mailer bags. They're actually prepaid, so they come back to us, and so it ensures that we capture all of them, so they're not going to the wrong place. And then we work to recycle them effectively, and then actually we're actually, I don't know if this is a world exclusive, whether we can say what we're going to be doing, but we're working with a leading academic partner as we sort of make them into new products.
Yeah.
Oh, that is an exclusive. Thanks.
I already heard it. No, I'm just kidding. No, and do you charge it on the side? Do you charge it through the case? So you just put it in the case and you charge it.
You can, and we also have a separate charging stand as well. So depending on which one you prefer.
Interesting. Cool. No, that's really good advice when you say, take insight closely and restructure your product based off of what people say. I find it really interesting when founders tell me they come up with an idea and then they just start talking about the idea and people are quite like, oh yeah, sure, you're going to make a business, or sure, you're going to turn that into a company or a growing company or something of the sort. Were people hesitant about you guys starting a toothbrush company?
No.
Yes.
Actually, well, yes and no.
Yes and
like whenever we explain the concept, people are like, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my battery does die and it is really unsustainable. And like, actually, I don't like traveling with it. Like if someone created something that addressed it, it's like, yeah, I can see like I would do it. And that was for me, like, working in sales, that's like such a key thing when you can sort of, it's a very, very simple concept, but people get it like really, really quickly. And so in that respect, it wasn't hard. Persuading our families, I think, was a different matter maybe.
Oh, they were all for it until we actually started doing it full time. I think.
Yeah.
They're like,
You're gonna quit
job
your
too.
job.
I'd say, but we've had nothing but amazing support from our
Yeah.
families, especially our wives who've been supporting us in the early stages where we weren't making any money as a paycheck ourselves. I think it takes time to convince some people. I mean, it's very hard to raise investment early on. We were very fortunate to have Hambro Perks support us, pre-launch. But there's quite a lot of people you need to talk to convince, and to develop our product because we're doing things slightly differently. It was really hard for us to find a manufacturing partner. Mark and I would be on Zoom 24/7. Because during COVID, we couldn't go and see facilities. And our plant-based heads, they're quite unique. It's a material made out of cornstarch, and our bristles are castor oil. And so many manufacturing partners are like, that won't work. That material will break. That will die. We pushed on it, and we did trials and testing, and we were able to get that done. Perseverance is so key in the early stages, and just believing that, and you will have to pivot and accept you're not perfect. That's another thing. Although we try to be as sustainable as possible, we know we're not perfect. In the future there will be water-powered batteries. We should move to that. And some of this stuff, I'm not going to tell you all of our innovation, but we're looking at things that are just light years ahead. I'll tell you some of it, of course. But, just accepting that you're not perfect and that you're constantly evolving, but keeping sustainability as one of your core values ensures that you always do that as you launch new products. It's not just something you develop it and then you're like, how do we make it sustainable? Okay, change the packaging. Which is kind of, I think, of legacy companies that I've seen and worked with. It's always an afterthought rather than a sort of like initial pillar that you're designing for.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say is like, you obviously mentioned like finding a manufacturing company that could work with you, and produce the material that you wanted. Would you say that was like the hardest thing while starting SURI? Like, what would you say was like the hardest the hardest moment or the toughest time during your journey, finding this company?
It's my favorite question.
Or was it the investment stage? Was it the creative process?
We got a lot of hard moments.
Yeah. He's like, this is a hard moment right now.
No. I think actually one of the funny ones that was a hard moment, but like I think we are constantly evolving on it, is actually like our relationship and our communication. So, as Gyve mentioned, we started during COVID, and so we would literally just have Zoom on in the background for like 8 hours. We'd be doing our own work, and then we'd be able to ask a question to each other as we went along. But when we're very different people, and we have a lot of pressure and things constantly moving, and so sometimes the way we communicate, there would be misunderstandings, and that would take place. People might see something or in a certain tone, or I might misunderstand something on a Tuesday, and then like that night I'd be like kind of angry about it, or it kind of like, or maybe I'd like park it, but I hadn't really resolved it, and it kind of annoyed me. And so we early on decided that on a Friday we would just do this like very candid, open and honest discussion for 1 hour, and we'd just say like, hey, you said this, it made me feel like that. You said that, I didn't like, etc. And we'd both have it for each other. Like, it would lead to like, we'd have like, arguments right there and then, or bring that back up the emotions of anger or whatever. But what was amazing about it was we quickly learned, like, because we're so different, Give would be like, oh, when I said that, I was talking about this, not that. And I'd be like, oh, the way I interpreted it was, you meant this. You'd be like, oh, no, not at all. And it's hard sometimes to convey when someone like really means something, you know what I mean? Like this is really important to me. There's no way of communicating that. And so we came up with like a hand signal to say to the other person, like, look, when I do this hand signal, I want you to like stop and just like listen and know that this is really important to me. And actually, that's been so fundamental, I think, because
it's been our superpower, because like if you are very different, you look at things differently, and we bring such different strengths to the table. We've worked in different areas of business, and being able to collaborate and in a free way where you can have a difference of opinion, but really win the other over. That's so fundamental. They say the number 2 or 3 reason companies fail early on is founders fall out. Whereas we've kind of moved past the emotion of it, and we're like, what do you think? This is what I think, and how do we optimize it together? And that has been such a strength for us. Do we still have those sessions? Yeah, on occasion. We minimize them probably, but I think now it's more like we want the same goal, right? And so it's like we're just bringing each other along on the vision together, and then how do we sell it into our organization?
It might be, funny if you can answer that truthfully now, but I'm wondering,
we're very honest.
We've met obviously founders who didn't have a partner, and founders who had the 3 people got together or like 2. Do you think it would have been easier doing it by yourself, or do you think it's really important to have a co-founder?
100%. It would not be easier. I worked on startups.
Imagine you said it was.
Like one.
He's like, yeah.
Mark obviously will have an opinion on it, but and hopefully the same one. But 100%, we would not be here today if it wasn't the 2 of us. The amount of times I've struggled and Mark's been there being like, this is what we're going to do, is how we're going to pick ourselves up and how we're going to move forward, or vice versa. And you are, and also otherwise, like I think your family will hate you, because like in the early days you have nobody to talk to, and a co-founder is such a strength. And that, being able to resolve things with somebody else other than your family or your investors, you need somebody who's in it with you, I would say.
Mark, do you have the same opinion? Or
I actually reckon it'd be easier. It's amazing because we get asked this question. I was speaking about it to Mike, one of our colleagues, the other day, and the way he explained it he was saying what some of his friends were asking him the same question, and he said, categorically, it would not work if we removed one of Gyve or I, and I believe that I would definitely not have got anything off the ground. Like Gyve has got so many skills that I don't, in terms of perseverance or believing things could be possible when everything else would tell you that it's not possible. And I think I genuinely I couldn't have done this at all without Gyve. So yeah, I mean,
I'd say
for other businesses, like I'm sure there are examples of other companies where maybe actually it does make sense for one person to do it, right? But I think when it comes to hardware in this space, and then the fact that Gyve was in finance and marketing, I was in sales and strategy, really enables us to kind of get the best of each other. But coming back to the communication bit, it does also come with its challenges. If we weren't able to resolve like the way we communicate and the way we kind of make decisions or get over like points of tension, it wouldn't work. And so I really do credit like a lot of our success in terms of our ability to communicate well. Are we perfect on it? Absolutely not. Do we still get it wrong? Like, in fact, we're just walking over here, we're like arguing about something. But
it's the wrong direction. I told you.
Pretty much. Actually, we were lost.
It was a direction. Yeah, we're like,
we were actually talking. We walked around in circles.
Yeah, it's kind of funky, isn't it?
It's not that easy to find.
Yeah, it's really
remember.
But what's great about it is that having worked on it for two plus years now, like actually we're able to get to like the best answer really quickly, and we ultimately do respect and want each other and want the same sort of outcome, and so it works.
And I would just build on that. I think that is like the essence of a startup that's doing well, is to optimize and to iterate and to get better. Like we're constantly learning, whether it's in sustainability or the way we work together, and being able to recognize that we are learning. We're not perfect, but we need to take those learnings in. Like we've failed so many times. Like you asked about difficult moments. Like we've had challenges. Like our first batch of brushes, we were ready to ship out 5,000, and the courier at the last minute, when all the orders were placed, told us that they won't ship products with batteries in them, and we're like, and so all that delayed us trying to find another courier for another 2 weeks. But just taking those learnings and not using that courier again is so key, and that's something that as we realized that we've made mistakes, like Mark in the beginning had a little scrapbook of learnings, and he'd be like, it was actually more a Google sheet, and we were just putting in like, big fail there. What did we learn? Because if you're not learning, then as a company our size, trying to do things differently with different materials, like there's the easy way, and then there's what startups will do is take risks and try to move faster. You're gonna break things and get things that aren't working and run into failures, but you need to pivot to kind of optimize those and say, well, what happened there? What did I learn? What am I taking with that on the next iteration?
I mean, Mark spoke on having you two having different skill sets. Do you think that's very important? Finding someone who has quite frankly probably the opposite skill set. If you're more creative, more you have good communication skills. So finding someone who's more just like numbers driven and like analytical. Like, do you think that that's a good balance, or is it because you can't really have two creatives in the team, right? Or like two people who are just like number driven, or is that something that's helped out a lot?
I think it really depends on which business you're running and what category, because it sometimes maybe like if you're opening a creative agency, maybe it's really helpful if both of you are creative, right? In our example, it really helps that we have like different perspectives and we can bring something different to the table, and it's often that tension between like different approaches that creates like a 1 + 1 = 3 type moment. So that's certainly been the case in our example.
I find that helpful with building a team as well. There's a lot of successful business leaders and founders out there, and they're not super like powered. Like they have to have a team. They have to have people that help them. Because as much as you want to do everything yourself, you can't. It's like founder syndrome, right? You don't want to, hand the ropes over to someone else to run the business that you've been creating, and that's your baby and your child, and you've spent so much time on it. So how big is your team now?
I was thinking of asking that question as well.
So we're currently 19 people, but we're just growing so rapidly, and we are in the process of hiring quite a few more.
Mm-hmm. So how do you go about your hiring processes? Because a lot of founders tell me that they try to hire people that are smarter than them. What's your, what do you look for in
like
employees?
no one is smarter than us?
That's very low bar for us.
Yeah, I was about to say, like,
so everybody's smarter than you on your team? All right.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. Honestly, to a certain extent, we've had experience running other companies and so on, but I feel like I'm making everything up as we go along. Do you know what I mean? Like, I've not had a company of this size before with this revenue. I've had to hire this many people. So, I'm learning for the first time in the same way that, I don't know if either of you have set up a company before.
No, but no. I speak with a lot of people that do.
Well, yeah, we've interviewed a lot of founders, a lot of entrepreneurs.
But I think something that people don't maybe always appreciate is you setting up a company for the first time, or me hiring, like, say, 10 people in one go for the first time. We're both doing the same thing. Like, I've not hired 10 people in one go before. That'll be a first for me. You haven't set up a company before. And so, to a certain extent, there is like some parallel in terms of like, I don't really know what I'm doing. I've not had experience with this before. How do I solve that problem, right? And so for me, then it's like, well, who do I know who's done this before? Can I get advice from them? Can I Google it? Can I research it? What could I do to like reduce the risks? What can I do to maximize the output? What's the process? Like, how could I come up with a better process? Is there someone else I can lean on, etc.? And all it really is problem solving. It's just that when you're the founder of a company, you're problem solving something every single day. So I think you become more skilled at solving problems quickly, effectively, etc. But to a certain extent, we're constantly doing things for the first time and learning, and like inevitably you'll get some stuff wrong, you'll get some stuff right. But on the balance, if you get more things right than wrong, then you should be on the right track. That's the way I think about it.
No, 100%. I would just add that, and there's learning by doing, right? Like, you'll do it wrong in the first couple times, and you'll try to correct it. At our stage, and it changes during stages. We were 5 people for quite a long time, and then we hired another 5 people, and at different stages, you want different types of profiles. I think at an early stage, we want the multitasker that can do quite a few things, because like, you're not going to be hired into one small profile. You end up doing quite a few things you don't want to do, whether it's like putting up a booth in a stand and having to write all of our emails. I would just say it changes and evolves. And then as you get bigger, you're able to afford more specialized roles, because in the beginning, you probably have to outsource some of the specialized roles because you can't afford them, or, they're not broad enough unless you're lucky and somebody personal who's like, I'm willing to do that stuff too. And so you're more of a generalist team in the beginning. We try to hire the best people, but there's kind of a desire to continually learn, because that's kind of innate in us, and we want that to be present in the team, to know that they're not perfect, but they're gonna. And we enable that with our team with free training budgets to grow, multitask, and then just, I'd say, a winning spirit, which sounds really cheesy. We don't say that internally, but like
A passion for winning.
Passion for winning. That's actually what we say is really cheesy. But what I mean by that is, like, we all have fun coming to work, and we really enjoy it. We spend so much time with our team, more than our families, and we really want to create a space where people enjoy doing the work and coming to work. Obviously, there'll be times where you'll be like, oh, I worked late, that was stressful, but we don't want it to be a tension in the office. And so this whole way we've learned to work together, we share it with the team. And when, like, there are going to be times when something upsets you, trust and transparency is so key for us. So, pull the person aside, let them know right then and there. Don't let it brew for the next 3 months. Like, we work best when we're all enjoying our time with each other. And I think that can get missed at bigger stage companies. You're like, I just don't have the time. I'm going to work with another set of people. But at a startup, you can't have that flexibility to be like, I'm not going to work with that person. I don't enjoy it, because you're just a small knit team that is working on everything. You're going to be touching so many things together. So just championing and enabling that is so important for us.
And like you said earlier, once you were first startup, you kind of just get addicted to that buzz. Like, it's just such a, entrepreneurial buzz. So I find a lot of entrepreneurs, they try to hire other entrepreneurial spirits within their business because they want to build it as much as the entrepreneur wants to build it that founded it. I think that's pretty good. Everybody feels like they're building a business with the person that's actually building the business.
Given that you guys speak to lots of, business owners, entrepreneurs, if you could own any company in the world right now, right? Which company would you like to own and be the
City A.M.
City A.M. But we're not buying it.
It changes. From, like, right now, I don't know. Probably like a publishing company. Like, I love reading. I love novels. Probably maybe like Penguin's Publishing, because I love the books that they produce.
I love children's books. It's like I have a really big
Scholastic,
passion.
then.
Yeah, I
Or like
just have
Scholastic.
a really
Scholastic
big
is a big children's book publisher.
passion for children's literature.
In which case, one of our team, his girlfriend works in HarperCollins, just across the road, in children's publishing.
Nice. What's her name? Can you say that on the podcast?
I probably can't say that.
Okay,
name,
because I have an old professor that actually works at HarperCollins as well. But yes, cool. I'm always keen, because Paddington, I have found a new love for Paddington at the age of 23, because I didn't have it growing up in the States. Like, we don't have Paddington. And it introduced my love to children's literature. I love it so much. I already have like 3 drafts made. So I'd probably start a children's book publishing company.
Well, just on that front, like, and then I know we're going a little bit off topic. Yeah. I went to this presentation and this guy was like showing us, he's like an Amazon expert, sells 8 figures on Amazon. And he was like, look, this is a way you could set up a business using ChatGPT, and to use, I always forget the names of the other AI generative image makers, but it was like, come up with a concept for this book. These are this is a prompt, comes up with a story, then he takes a figure, puts it into image generator, tweaks it, puts it into a book, then there's a thing where Amazon will like actually physically print it, and got this book uploaded really, really quickly. The point I'm making is that technology now enables us to do these businesses that were like really not even possible like 2, 3, 4 years ago, let alone 5 years ago. Like us creating a toothbrush brand, which is going to take a huge share of the market globally in a matter of years, is only possible because of software like Shopify, which 10, 15 years ago didn't exist. You'd have to have spent so much money. And so I think it's an incredible time for anyone to be able to set up a business, because we have all this software and tools that enable us to compete with much larger companies which just didn't exist before.
I would just add to that, like, I think software and particularly AI are good to help work with humans. I don't think it'll ever take over our jobs, hopefully, because it never came up with the concept of our rush. I think what it does is it's very good at looking at historical stuff and trying to replicate rather than create something different. And so that's where I think, like, you still need us.
That's what I've heard a lot when I've spoken to people from that space, is that it's very hard for AI to kind of create something out of the blue, like, something brand new. So you still need like kind of human creativity that can work alongside AI to produce something fresh, but quicker than they would have without the help of AI and these new software and these new image generators and ChatGPT and et cetera, et cetera.
I find it fascinating because when I speak with some founders, they don't even realize they're using AI, and they are. Like, they'll use Otter, like transcribing stuff.
Yeah, even like Grammarly or something. If you're using Grammarly to write your emails, you're using AI.
I had an internship at the startup, and it was just one person startup. And I introduced her to ChatGPT and to help her with her email campaigns. And she was like, you have to leave. I'm going to play with this for the next 2 hours. And I was like, I left. But it changed her life. Like, because there's little things like that. When you're running a company all by yourself, you don't have time to spend drafting an email from scratch, like a blank piece of paper and 600 words. You 100%. Just don't. And so, like you said, it helps aid in that building. And it might not build it for you, but it gives you some time that you don't have as a founder. And I find it really interesting that people don't even realize they're using it.
We're all about the hacks.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Definitely.
Use whatever hacks you can possibly get.
It's funny, though, because it does feel like, at the start of the internet, the people who, like, piled in and really learned about it and took advantage of it and, like just really kind of worked out how to harness what this could be. Like Jeff Bezos, obviously profited from being one of the early adopters and the people who like really worked out, okay, yes, there's good things about the internet, there's bad things about the internet, do you know what I mean? It enables lots of negative things, and I'm sure it'll be the same with AI. There's an opportunity there for people who want to take it, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't jump on the trend, and the trend's not going anywhere but up, you're going to be left behind.
100%.
Yeah, accept what's being innovated and innovate with it.
A lot of people want to be entrepreneurs and they want to be founders and they want to start their own business. Quite often don't understand the hours that they have to put into it. And you briefly touched on, your work, like people who you work with, you see them more than you see your family. So how is the hours like, especially, from starting to the point that you are now? How is the hours like, starting, SURI? I'm sure it was probably more, maybe I'm wrong, lengthier hours back then than it is now, or is it pretty much 80 hours up from start to up to now?
Do you want to bring up this?
Yeah, I thought you would.
He's like, I have a lot to say about this.
Yeah.
I'm working every single day because Gyve does no work.
That's a fact we'll talk about later.
So when I was young, my parents set up a business, and I saw it grow from when I was sort of 7 and how that evolved. And I think, I'm not saying this is like a good thing, or maybe it's a bad thing, but the hours when it's your own company it's not, there aren't hours. Like it's every hour. Like I think about it all the time. I'm like, it's 24 hours. I don't, and this is not necessarily a recommendation. Maybe this is a bad thing, but like it's hard to it's hard to separate work and life because the two of them are so together. Now, does that mean I'm like at my desk working all the time? It doesn't, right? And so it's an interesting answer in as much as, there are some people who are like, yeah, I'm going to work 80 hours, 100 hours in my office. I'm not going to see anyone. I'm like hardcore working. That's not what we're like, I would say. Sometimes there are times where we have to do a bit longer hours, but there's like the core office hours. But like, when I wake up in the morning, I'm checking our sales numbers from overnight. I'm responding to any immediate emails. I'm checking my schedule for the day.
From bed.
Yeah. And then when I'm cycling in, I'm like catching up on books or podcasts, or I'm speaking to Gyve, like to pre-align for the rest of the day. All day is like work. I've got 2 kids. I race home to spend some time with them, put them to bed, have dinner with my wife, talk to her about some of the stuff that's happening at work, and then I either do a little bit more work or try and chill out. But then often I'll have an idea and I'll be like, oh, Gyve, like at 10 p.m, like, hey, I've just had this idea. And then we'll sort of text about it for half an hour. So work-life balance, I'm not sure. Like it's.
I feel like it's gotta be as simple as, sometimes you're just watching television, you pause the television, you're like, I have this idea. Like you just get, like as an entrepreneur,
I would
feel
say
like
you
just
don't
get.
pause
you don't pause it.
end up rewinding 10 times.
Yeah.
That's
But, like,
me.
as an
My
entrepreneur,
girlfriend hates that.
You missed what's the plot, and my wife's like, that's what's just happened. You didn't
I do the
see
same
it?
thing.
And
I
was
would
like,
literally
oh,
watch half
sorry, I
of
was
it.
answering. I will just build on what Mark said. I think it's a decision you make, right? Like, do we have the most social life? Probably not as we did maybe 4 years before we started, but we really enjoy what we're doing. So as we put it in, and I guess you could say it's a bit like an artist. It doesn't feel like pain, it's more enjoyment.
Exactly.
And then, our 2 kids are a lot of work. Mark's been a father of 2 kids longer than I have. I have now a 3-month-old daughter and a 2.5-year-old daughter. They bring you tons of joy. And so, whether you're working or you're playing with them, I think we've accepted for these next few years of our life, like that's probably what we have the most time for. And when you kind of make decisions, like I don't have a lot of time to do something, and accepting that, you learn to optimize it. We still go on holiday. I was just on holiday and got some beautiful sun. Although it's sunny here in the UK, I always do that. I do it.
It was kind of sunny.
Yeah.
But I think that a good example is whilst he was on holiday, we had multiple calls.
Don't say it.
Taking it from the
we're on
beach.
email.
But it wasn't
I'm-
stressful at all. Like I
Yeah.
literally was taking it pretty much like from the pool. I went to Morocco.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
So I was taking from the pool, but I was constantly thinking about work. It's hard to turn off, and I didn't want to turn off because that's when I get some of my best thinking. Is Mark saying like you might come up with a great idea, and like I've solved the problem. I think we try, if it's getting stressful, then it's important to take some time and balance, find a way of meditating, brush your teeth. I don't know.
You can do that with a co-founder as well. Like that's the beauty.
Oh, we brush our teeth. Oh, is that
No,
what-
no. That too, I guess, if you want.
No, we
'Cause
don't.
you can hear each other still.
But
with
that's-
that.
yeah, exactly.
But
What?
that's it. You can pick up the slack end, and you're sort of more managing your energy flow, I think. And so, yeah, the reason we can do this is because we enjoy it so much. I'm not like regretting like thinking about work. But I also don't think this is like a perfect solution. I wouldn't recommend anyone necessarily like takes us as like the great example of how to choose to spend your time or lead your life. That's the way we're managing it at the moment. But a bit like I said, like we're making it up as we go along. I previously have never run a company while having 2 children, and I'm constantly learning and constantly getting things wrong in terms of where I spend my
And
time or
optimizing.
energy. And so we were just both saying also on the walk here, like we need to probably take some more time like to look after our health.
Yeah, work out more.
To do workouts.
Other than the
and-
tea.
I think the thing is like but as a co-founder, one thing you get really good at is optimizing things. And they're like, oh, we need to do this. I don't have time for it. Okay, I'm going to make time for it now.
Yeah.
And so kind of like your problem solving, as Mark said, so finding a way to fit that 30-minute workout in now has become my new challenge. So here I go. But I will, ask me in a week and we'll be like, oh yeah, I fit it in there and I was able to move that and that worked out.
And totally. And like, we have a business that's doing a strong 8 figures now. But when we get to 9 figures in sales, like there will be new problems and new demands on our time, and our kids will, be a little bit older, and I'm sure things will evolve, but that need to constantly problem solve and optimize and see what's working, see what's not working is kind of like it's like the never ending game, which is why it's so addictive.
Constant learning and optimizing with children, which I had no idea. Like, I think that is something I'm always like, oh, we need to start doing this.
Yeah.
I think the best advice I got was whatever's working won't last, and whatever's not
that's a
working
good one.
won't last either. So it's just constantly changing. I think the startup pretty much mirrors that. Like whatever worked in like your first stage of launch is not going to continue your growth. You're going to have to keep changing things.
Have you guys ever, I mean, I might be giving you an idea if you haven't, but have you ever thought about making baby brushes? So you both have young kids. Colorful, fun, little, you have those like
they
really
have
fun...
something brewing. They just can't say
Okay,
it.
cool.
That's
I kid, like I used to have like a SpongeBob one when I was a kid, like colorful ones, little baby ones.
like, oh, our PR is gonna kill us.
No, 100%. Like everybody else
My
says.
idea, never seen
All the parents are like,
Yeah,
my
it's one
kids
of our
all want
most
that.
requested things. I think, look,
Interesting.
children, even more so than a lot of the older generations, like are growing up like really conscious of climate change and how our actions are really important, and they learn about recycling at a much younger age than we ever did. And so I think having a product which enables them to make sustainable and more healthy decisions for their personal health feels like a good idea. Watch this space.
Yeah, I could honestly imagine just any parent would love to have an educating toothbrush for their child. Like it would just make teeth brushing time so much better at the end of the
Also
day.
one that the kids enjoy, and it
Yeah.
comes back to what you were saying, if you enjoy something you're more likely to do it, and that's the same for kids as anyone else. Toothbrushing has traditionally been a chore, not something that you actually enjoy doing. But just imagine if you could flip that on its head and actually you look forward to brushing your teeth, you're more likely to have better habits and healthier teeth. Less cavity.
Definitely from a young age. So what you guys talk about how, you love work. You work on your holidays, but you like it, so it's not a pain. Do you guys have any other hobbies that aren't brushing your teeth or working about other people brushing their teeth?
Karaoke. No, I'm kidding.
Is it actually?
No,
I was gonna say you have a microphone.
Awesome.
Right?
Yeah, let's have
Right.
that.
Break out your song.
No. I mean, I've had to learn that on the job now. Like some of
Karaoke.
our suppliers love karaoke.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
That's so weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have quite a few. We both love skiing. Mark's a an avid skier. I have a skate marks
I haven't been skiing for a while though. To be fair, like young children and startup does not make a great ski combination. I would honestly say like it's coming to that time thing. It's like now there's a lot of time at work. My free time is like with my children and my wife, and then like there's just so little other time beyond that. That honestly, like probably do less hobbies than I did before. What I'm trying to do is optimize. I love listening to books or reading books and learning, especially about business. If I'm commuting, I try and listen to things, and really use that time. Or if we're traveling, use that as an opportunity.
That's what I've been doing, actually, listening to like podcasts a lot while I'm like maybe in the shower, brushing my teeth, or commuting. I listen to a lot of personal finance podcasts and business podcasts, and like
you need a
Wait,
brush
which one's
that's
your
not too
favorite?
loud.
Right now, I've been watching Waveform. It's like Marcus Brownlee. It's about tech and software.
Yeah.
So that's probably the one I'm listening to a lot recently, because I'm quite similar where I don't switch off. I mean, as journalists, we always have to kind of know what's going on in news. I have to know constantly what's going on. And since I'm managing, City A.M's like social media and our video, I'm always checking. Like how fast did this video go from 0 to 2,000 views? How fast did it get to 10,000 views? Why did it get to it? So it'll be like 12 a.m. and I'm like opening my phone and checking YouTube to see if it's working, like, or going on LinkedIn and see how many people liked something that we posted on LinkedIn, or how many views a Twitter post got. And like my girlfriend hates it, but I'm constantly always like checking what's working and what's not working. It's hard to switch off even when it's the weekend or I'm on holiday. And it's that fine line that's hard to, find. Is like, when do you switch off and when do you don't? And can you even switch off is like the real question in the end.
I think it's such a fascinating question because is it because I'm the same, like exactly as you describe. I'm checking that on our sales, on everything, on our email, like constantly like addicted into my phone because I want to succeed. Like now, I think, is it good for business and for growing and for learning? Definitely. Do you know what I mean? Like the business, the more you put in, the more like close you are to those numbers, no doubt you get more insights and you're able to be better at that. And so that's true. But like, is it good for you personally, for your relationships, for other stuff? The jury's out. Like it's an interesting thing. I think a lot of people say that like
you need
should
to find
have balance
time for your relationships and your family time. Like I try not to have my phone anywhere near me for at least the 2 hours before my daughter goes to bed. Because it's 100% me time and they're chasing and running after you. I would just add on that, like, I don't think you can say hacking is a hobby, but I've begun cooking a lot more. A big thing, I'm time poor, but I like to cook meals fast and finding different ways. Like my wife and I, we try to alternate cooking and get different cookbooks, because that's like a set time where, we have to make a meal for our kids and everybody. I don't know if we can name other stuff. So we started using one called Plant Hood, which is like quick vegetarian meals, and that's been pretty much a game changer for 3 meals of our every other week. But just where, and also trying to reduce meat consumption as much as possible. But I think
what I've realized helped is going on walks. Like last night, I went like in the evening, I went on a walk with my girlfriend, like a good 1 hour walk, and we just, none of us were on our phones and we're just talking. And I think we only pulled out our phones to take pictures because it was like a really good sunset last night, and then we just took pictures of the sunset, but that was it. I didn't check what was going on online. I didn't check what, any breaking news, just, nice, peaceful, calm walk. And me and her were just talking about life and stuff like that. So I think that has helped. So that's probably like cooking.
That's perfect.
For you.
I give my phone to my wife in those situations because take out a picture and he's lost. So it's like something has come up.
I also find it interesting because, I feel like Emmanuel and I, we always have a lot of ideas. Like maybe we're just very entrepreneurial focused, but what we like to go on is, 80% or 20% ideas, 80% executing.
Yeah,
so if you don't clock off, you're just going to have all of these ideas that you cannot execute. And like you said, you can't rush time. Like money doesn't buy time, things don't buy time. You just have to slowly build things, quality over quantity, I guess you could say. But if you don't clock off, you're just going to have 100% ideas and no execution.
Yeah,
ideas are important.
They are. Just write them down. Just do them as you can.
But I'm very just like 70% is execution. If we have like some kind of plan, some kind of idea, 30% of that should be planning. Just try, because of no matter how much you plan something at times, shit will hit the fan and, nothing will go as planned. Like you mentioned, like when you guys were trying to ship out 5,000 toothbrushes, what happened? They were like, oh no, we can't ship this out. And then you spend another 2 weeks trying to find, a new. So it's just like nothing can almost always will never go as planned. So just do whenever you can, and just know when to take a break.
Always write your ideas down because you'll forget. I honestly.
So I had a really interesting meeting last week with a group of people, and Professor Scott Galloway, who's like a prominent person, I guess, on LinkedIn. He's built and sold multiple companies, and he's got a pretty hot take on all of this kind of stuff, which is like, a lot of people nowadays talk about work-life balance. He's like, if you want to be really successful, there is no work-life balance. Like, just work your ass off. That's
I've heard that advice a few times.
if you want to see the most successful people, they don't have balance. They hands down don't. They don't see their kids. They don't look after their health. They're just like 100% work, and it is a formula for success. If Elon Musk's not known for having his like really great balance, nor are any of like the most successful people. The question I have though is like, we're only all going to get to live once, so you've got to choose like what's more important to you. Is success more important to you in like, and like delayed gratification? Maybe you'll be successful in a decade or something, and then you can relax. Or do you want to have a more even sort of lifestyle throughout? And I don't know, I just think it's quite an interesting take that's contrary to a lot of advice, which is like, oh, you'd have to find work-life balance. Like, you absolutely don't. If you want to be more successful, you probably need to work harder. I don't know, what do you guys think?
How successful do you like, what's success to you?
Yeah, I think it depends on the person.
I think that's what it ultimately, for me at least, it ultimately boils down to just like, what is success to you? Is success getting to this level but still having a lot of time with your family, or being an Elon Musk and owning, multi-billion-dollar company, but then you don't see your kids, you don't really see your wife, you don't have time with your friends. You have to kind of choose, because like you said, you cannot really have a work-life balance if you want to get to the level of Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk. You can't. Really.
But it's like, whilst it's true for them, like I would probably argue that like anyone at City A.M, right? If you worked longer, harder, and did more quality output than your colleagues, you will also probably rise the ranks faster, and in the long run, your career you will outperform people if you work harder and smarter. Not just longer hours, but like also quality longer hours.
Yeah.
But then it just depends, like you said, like, is that what you want from your life, and is that important to you?
I think it's something that has always bugged me, is that the word workaholic, or someone's always like head in work and never really having any free time. People look down upon that so much. They're like, you need a balance, you need a life, go out, have fun with your friends, you're only 20 something, but it's like, that is such a good energy to have, like just wanting to work or wanting to improve your career. And I think a lot of people do look down on it, like it's just really weird. And it depends. And again, everybody is so different. Like,
I think if you go back like 20, 30 years ago, that's what was expected.
Yeah.
Have your head down.
Yeah, and now it's just like
work. But like the last 5 years or so, it's become that whole work-life balance. So it's kind of like, oh, you're always at work. It's kind of frowned upon now. Don't slave away, but it's switched the conversation.
I don't think it should have a negative connotation to it.
I think balance is so important, but I think it's interpretation. So like, we're talking about working hard. We're with founders, and so we're enjoying it. Like, I don't expect that of everybody on our team. Obviously I want everybody to work hard and enjoy what they're doing, but like, I think balance is important. And if you look at, I worked hard previously in roles where I faced close burnout. And if you don't manage that well, like, you need to take care of it. And we were talking just before coming here about how I was like, my new workout scheme is I was like, if I don't get my health back up to this, then because like taking care of yourself is so important. And so sometimes when we talk about working hard, we forget that like, you also need to work hard to take care of yourself. And so that is in the mix. And so how do you still promote that? I would say, like, I love the idea of hacking. And, you mentioned most entrepreneurs do, but how do I work smarter, not harder? And that's always kind working. Of, that's something I'm always trying to do. One of the things that I do is I template my emails, which is terrible. Not to people, but like invites, right? Like, oh, can you send an invite? Always
change the name.
So on Macs and PCs, you can use text replacement. On a PC, you can use something called Text Expander. So I write PLC for placeholder, and I write that in my email in an invite, and it'll just put in all the email, like, I'm setting this meeting as a placeholder, let's meet, if you can, here's the Google link meeting. I do it also with responses, like all our company information is in a text, like legal information, because you can't, or mobile phone number, address, like they're all shortcuts. Like, that's anything I can take cognitive load and take it out, then I have more time to relax and not have to like spend time there, or have more time to work, and then just finding where you're going to give that extra time that you've had. But
actually, I've never said this in one of the podcasts or interviews, but like, that was the very, very first time we met. Gyve was working for the head of this global company, and I was like, how on earth do you get this done? And he was like, oh, look. And he showed me these hacks, and I was like, this guy is a genius.
I need to actually
I need hacks.
I honestly,
I
will show you afterwards. It
Yeah.
is so good. I use this every day. I've saved hours, maybe days of my life I've got back as a result of that one particular thing. So I was like, if you can do that, then we can do other stuff. But just running at that conversation about like, should you work really hard? Shouldn't you? People say like you shouldn't work too hard or this or that. Like personally, I've come to the sort of belief that you really just got to choose what's right for you and make that decision and then act accordingly. Do you know what I mean? If for you balance is like the right thing, optimize for that. If for you want to be like more successful, like optimize for that. But like that, even the phrase balance, like everything in moderation, including moderation, right?
Yeah.
And so like there's a time and a place to really put your head down and work, and there's a time and a place to not do anything at all. It's just how you choose that.
There's a time and a place to brush your teeth.
Yeah, it seems like.
Okay, let's just do some rapid fire question. You guys spoke a lot about having that kind of belief, and also being able to optimize. What would you say is more important, optimization or persistence?
I'd say persistence.
Yeah, that sounds something. Because he said that was like the quality that you had over here. What would you say?
I would say optimization.
Optimization.
There you go.
That's why it works.
because you can be persistent on something and it's not working, or you can optimize and kind of go around it.
Yeah.
It's kind of my approach, but then sometimes you do need to be persistent. So there's a time to be persistent and there's a time to optimize. But yeah, for me, you can overcome anything through optimization.
That's a good one. So out of all of the productivity hacks that you have, if a founder had to start with one of them, what would you suggest?
Yeah, I think the first one is the text replacement one, just saving time
I'm going
on
to start with
typing.
that.
Yeah, you can do everything. If you have like an automated calendar scheduler, like when do you have time to meet? I literally templated the whole response from like, hey, X, here is my calendar link that you can schedule your own time. Let me know when you have time.
I actually really need that.
And I just write 3 letters, the email's gone.
That's what we're going to do over lunch break today.
I'm notoriously bad
Optimize our
at
email.
replying emails.
Quick response. Or I also do like short words like, hey, hope all's well. Long time no speak. Whatever you write all the time, look for the things that you're constantly needing to find, whether it's a home address or work address. And you're like, oh, what is this? And then just like,
okay, I need that.
If you need that, then the hot thing that like a lot of founders are talking about right now, like it's just come onto the market recently, is called Fixer AI. I think it's FYXER.ai, and it's the first inbox tool that I've ever used that like really, really works. So it'll like work with any of your inboxes, and it auto sorts your emails into like which ones are notifications, which ones are FYI, what you need to respond to. And it will also draft responses in your tone of voice based on all your other emails that you've sent.
Oh.
So when it comes to responses, like someone sent you an email and it says, do you want to respond with this or with this? You delete one of them and just press send. And like I'm saving hours and hours and hours of time. And there's lots of other founders of companies who are just saying like, this is game changing. So
just don't send both
I've
responses.
done that. I've done that multiple times. I've sent both responses. And it's like, yes, I'd love to go to a meeting. Like, oh, sorry, I can't make it. And the person just responds like, and to be fair, like that's like the downside because it is AI and it's not quite perfect. And then people don't feel great when they realize that like you're responding like that. But again, optimization, like learn not to do that. And yeah, I think, but that one, it's not perfect, but it does like 80% of the job.
I've had many emails in my inbox where people call me like Linda or something. Like they just completely forgot to change the name and they're like pitching to me. I'm like, I'm not going to read that. No,
I've had emails come to me as well.
They forget to change the name. I know it's a template.
It's definitely just a template. And they put the wrong
hi, first name. First name only.
That's so funny. I am going to ask pizza or burger.
We were just
Pizza.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go pizza.
Pizza?
Because I can share it with my family and it's more fun.
Also, we just got one of those homemade one, like uni, the pizza oven, and so I can make pizzas with the kids. It's a lot of fun.
Okay. Yeah.
Interesting. So the name of this podcast is Founder Favorites. What if you had to choose like a 20-second answer of what your favorite part about being a founder is? What would it be?
The variety. Like I just get to do so many different things. I don't know. I'm one of the millions of people who reckons they're now ADHD, but it's so all-encompassing. It's like being in like an immersive video game, getting to like solve lots of different problems and try lots of different things, rather than just doing like one thing day in day out. Like for me, that's super rewarding.
That's a good answer.
And working
I wish
with
I had
Gyve.
that.
No, I was like, mine is less polished. I enjoy the speed, and the output. We've only been going for 2 years. It feels like we've been going for 5 years, and 1 month probably feels like 4 months. So you move really fast, and then the ability to sort of see the fruit of your efforts really quickly. I've been in other roles where you can work on something for some time and you don't really get to see like, wow, we created that really quickly. Wow, we've changed it to this. Wow, things can get done so much faster. So I think that's what I enjoy the most, and that's kind of a drug that once you get into a startup space in any sort of category, that is what people can't let go, is that speed and ability to move fast and create things.
That's actually quite why I like being in news, like journalism, is because as soon as it kind of comes out, within 10, 20 minutes you can see 5,000 views, 20,000 views, and like I love that. It's a terrible drug. It's an adrenaline rush, but it's a drug. So just you're always looking at like how many people are watching, the comments, the likes, that dopamine hit, and I love that speed, and to just see something that you've worked on for maybe whether it's an article or a video, and as soon as it's released, you get that almost instant gratification.
That's huge.
Or it doesn't do well at all, and then and it hurts, but then it drives you to want to do more.
Learnings.
So it's a really I completely agree with you with that.
That's the same for us when things don't do well. So we're like, the speed and the output wasn't there. So what did we do wrong? Did we move too fast maybe on something?
What's your favorite book recommendation? I know you say you listen to a lot of books and podcasts and stuff like that, but I meet a lot of people that are like, I want to learn business. I want to learn how to be an entrepreneur. They have no idea where to start reading. There's so many books out there. I think what is the most cliche one, Think and Grow Rich, but I know so many people that love that one as well.
So I had like a biblical type experience in my last company. Like we were growing quickly, but there were like so many painful bits, and I didn't know how to like move forwards. And my sister recommended this book called The E Myth, and the E actually stands for entrepreneur, not like for electronics or whatever. I started reading it at 9 p.m. at night, and I couldn't put it down. And like my wife woke up at 6 a.m. I was like, what? Like, are you? And I was just finishing the book, and it was like I was lost, and now I was found. I was in darkness, and now there was light. Like all those sort of expressions made sense, and I was like, this is what I need to do. And that book really kind of goes into how to like put in place systems into your business so that it can scale effectively. 90+% of businesses fail within 10 years. So, the odds of succeeding are really stacked against you. And so that book kind of provides a framework for how to not be one of those 9 companies. And for me, that was really useful. But more beyond that, I would say that like certain books speak to you at a certain time. And like there's a right book for the right time. And so for me, that was that one.
So would you say it's a book for someone who's already like got a company going or an idea and stuff like that, or it'd just be like someone wanting to be an entrepreneur?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's more relevant to someone who's already like in a business and is like, holy shit, this is the answer to my problems. But actually it would also probably be useful because I just think the way the sort of framework and sort of systematic thinking is a good approach. Mind you, Seth Godin wrote like the anti-E-myth book where he kind of calls out that the E-myth is like outdated and not relevant for today's society. So
drama. I love book drama.
Yeah, just take it with everything with a pinch of salt, right?
Yeah, I have so many startup books, and I tend to read them, but I don't read. I haven't read the E-Myth, so I'll read that now that you've rated it so highly. I find that a lot of them are outdated, and things change so much. There was one book that really stuck with me, which was The Hard Things About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz. So one of the Anderson Horowitz founders, VC firm in California, and that. Although it was software-based, I think there was so much that I read and took away from like when you're scaling a company, like some of the decisions you'll have to make and how to move fast. And I still refer back to it. I think it's an enjoyable book just for the story that comes with it and how big, around the time of Netscape and companies scaling. So I think that is definitely a book I'd recommend. I'd say, I haven't found startup books in general as manuals. Like I bought so many, and I just didn't really read into them. Some of the frameworks of the older school books, there's some how to build a company ones, or like it's called Company something. You get stuck in these old frameworks that don't work. The most important thing I'd say, like for starting a company, is doing research, finding out the insights, knowing early on what you're not good at, and then also knowing your economics. Like, are you profitable? Will you make money? And then challenging them and raising whatever you think your costs to be, like at least 10 to 20% higher.
I also think speaking to people helps too. When I started interviewing founders, I read so many startup books myself. I learned more speaking to founders than I did from this book. There you guys have it. listen to the podcast, you can learn. When you speak to people and you start to know their business and you start to hear about all these other things, so many people have startups. It's crazy. Like, someone asked me one time, they said, do you ever feel like you're going to run out of founders to interview? And I said, never. Literally never will I ever run out of founders to interview, because there's just always a startup.
The only counter argument to that is like 9 out of 10 of them are going to fail.
Yeah.
Right.
But then they're probably going to start again.
But
They're
but
gonna
the
try.
best ones to talk to are the ones that fail. They'll tell you
Yeah.
why they failed and how they
Yes.
failed.
I love failure. It's like a really...
It's not cherished enough. Like some of the companies I worked with didn't do well.
That's how we're
and,
going to
like,
start this podcast.
I
I love failure.
Yeah.
But I also, like, I'm just going to take a slightly different angle on it. Like, a lot of people are like, I love failure, I love failure. Like, for me, there's like different types of failure. There's like, you just did the wrong thing with the wrong attitude, with the wrong decisions, with like you can fail badly, and like that's not a good failure. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, there's this whole thing like on the internet where it's like, oh yeah, like
You should fail.
You should fail.
Well, you
It's like,
shouldn't fail, but if you
Yeah.
do, you should take something out of it.
Exactly.
It's the learning,
Don't
not the
fail
fail.
just to fail.
If you fail and
That's
don't
a good-
learn,
yeah.
it's a bad failure.
and there's like bad failures where
Yeah.
like your ego got in the way and you're just making
But
dumb
that's a
decisions.
learning for your ego right there.
Yeah.
Like,
But it's only a learning if it is a learning. And I
yeah,
think
if you
some
don't
people
fail and
it,
don't
if you
learn.
don't put it in a Google Sheet,
Yeah.
you know, you won't remember it.
Yeah.
I think that's what everybody's so scared of failure, that it's because they don't think anything can come from it. Like you guys said, big fail or big, when you're writing on your thing, why did you fail? What can you learn from it? Do all of those things.
The best advice I've ever read, I think, was from Richard Branson, but lots of other people say it, which is like, it's all about like minimizing your downside and maximizing your upside. So like, how can you like reduce the chances of your failure? How can you like minimize like the impact of, if you do fail on this, like you can, often you can get the lessons like quicker and cheaper by like being clever about how you minimize your downside. I think the one example he used was like he negotiated a contract with like an airplane so that if he didn't want them after a year, they would take them back and he wouldn't have to pay for them or something like that. And so he was like, I'll set up this airline. If it works, I'm going to make a ton of money. If it doesn't work, I don't have to keep the planes. I might have totally misquoted that.
No,
Sorry, Richard. That's the kind of thing. So rather than just being like, I would never want to encourage someone to go out recklessly, like lose loads of money and be like, oh, I failed. Like I'm the real winner because I lost all my money and savings. Like, that's really dumb advice.
Someone pay me.
Right?
Yeah.
Working out like, okay, how can I take a risk, but like reduce the risk level? Do you know what I mean? Like, what can I do to reduce the risk whilst maximizing upside, and continuously do that in ways that I can like not lose, that will kill the business. That's good advice. And so even listening to entrepreneurs, I would just, and like us included, like, we're 2 years into the business. Ask us again in 8 years' time whether you should listen to what we're saying or not.
One of the things I would just add to is like, we are very fail averse, right? Like, and from the beginning, we didn't hire a lot of people because we wanted to prove the hypothesis, which is that people want our products. Enough people want our products to survive. And so I think when you start a company, you use gut feel in some surveys, and you kind of just like still try to use a lot more gut feel. And it's so important to resolve that hypothesis. Like, is what I'm doing needed in the world, or is it meaningful enough, or will it require a shit ton of marketing money to make it take off, which not everybody will have. So do I have enough differentiation? Is it unique enough? Is it desirable? And that's like how you kind of you will like resolve a failure really fast. Better to fail fast than to spend tons of money and then to figure it out after 3 years. Also, like, differentiation is probably your biggest driver, but desirable differentiation. If you're not desirable,
Would you say having a plan B is also important? Because like you said, 9 out of 10 businesses fail within the first 10 years. 10 years is a really long time to build a company and then not have it work out. So
Right.
like, that's a daunting statistic, if I'm being honest. Like,
Yeah.
10 years of your life
For sure.
is a really long time to build a
On
company.
year
That's
9,
not
you have to,
Yeah.
you have to go.
Yeah,
You got
if I'm
your
being
company
honest, I'm
goes under,
24.
that's
That's
terrible.
nearly half my life. Like 10 years to build a company.
I think a lot will fail sooner
Yeah.
too. Like
Yeah.
within
Yeah.
10 years,
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
in 2 years, people will be going pretty fast.
Probably
Like,
60%
cash will run
fail
out.
within 2 years.
Cash is like the number one reason they
Okay,
fail.
so
I think what is the second one? Market fit or
I mean, there's
3
so
is
many.
founders
Yeah.
don't get along.
But I think,
So-
but to the 10 years, it's like I know a whole bunch of entrepreneurs who have been doing their business for like 7 years, 8 years, and it's not quite taking off in the way they thought they were, or it's like limping along. You've got to ask yourself the question. Then it's like, do I stick and persevere and it's going to get better? Do I do it for 20 years for it to not work ultimately, or do I pivot? Do I do something else? I guess it's a really difficult decision, and I think the truth is there is no really easy right answer. Otherwise, everyone would just do it, right?
I agree with you 100%. You have to kind of really love it, because if you don't love it, by year 8, if things are just kind of trailing along,
That's it.
it will
won't get
be
to year 8.
really, 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 really hard for you to. You probably wouldn't even get to year 8, like you said. Even if you're not, it's not taking off the way that you expected it. As long as it's fulfilling in a way, I think that might do it. He's like no.
Honestly, I just want to call it out, like, because there's loads of unhappy people. Like who like don't love their business. They aren't super passionate about it. Like they're just like kind of stuck. Like they're so deep in, and they're like not sure what to do. Like
Something you have to love it. If you don't love it, you'll feel stuck.
A lot of people just feel stuck, right? Like,
sucks.
but it's true of anything, and it's true of entrepreneurship. It's true of your career. There's a lot of people who like don't love their job and have stayed in it, right? So it's really just trying to work out how you overcome these things, how you make the calls. It's really difficult, and I just don't think there's a right answer. It's a lot of podcasts I listen to are like from people who are like really successful, right? People who like sold their company for like hundreds of millions, and they're like, just do it like this. This is how I did it, and
Works for them.
like it like
It's a lightning in the bottle.
there's so many dynamics which play into your favor. Whether it's like you launch at COVID and actually you're an online business, boom, like that's a bit of luck, or there's I just want to convey, like, we're growing really quickly, and I think we're really lucky, and we work really hard, and there's lots of really great, intelligent, hardworking entrepreneurs we know as well whose business might not grow as fast, and it's so much more than just like what you do. Do you know what I mean? Like there's so many factors involved, and that's where the perseverance, I think, really comes in.
Yeah, I was just going to add in those, like, I've worked at a company before that wasn't very successful in the startup scene, and I think there's so many learnings that come from that. And so you mentioned some entrepreneurs will not be seeing the light that they want to, and I would say, what are the learnings they can take away from that? Whether if they're not going to work at the company anymore. Some, like, one of them, just to give you an idea, was competitiveness. How competitive is the market? Like if it was a beauty brand, so many brands in beauty. There's not many brands selling electric toothbrushes. Weight is also really important. Things you don't think of, but then after you've done the business, you're like, if I'm going to do it again, it's going to be lighter. It's going to be more expensive. Fulfillment costs are expensive. Things that are lighter, you can ship around a lot easier. So how do you take whatever those learnings are from whether it's working in a company that didn't work, or seeing what their failures were but they didn't recognize, to capitalize on it? And then a lot of the time, I think companies underestimate the ability of how hard it is to sell something. And I need to sell online, I'll just get an agency partner that'll help me sell it online. But there are very few companies that actually, like, if you need to sell online and that is your main goal, build that capability in-house, hire somebody really good to do that. And if you're going to go into software, for example, I always talk to people, a bunch of my friends who want to go into software, and I'm like, do you know how to code? I'm like, no. And I'm like, that's going to be really hard, because then you're going to be working with somebody else who does know how to code, who's going to be selling you some software, and you don't know how to rate it, whether or not it's good or bad. And so more often than not, like, it's best to go into something you have some knowledge of whether the success or failures in that area, and then build it with knowledge of failures.
Also, I think this might be from the E-Myth, or I might be misquoting, but the analogy that I think is really useful, like, for entrepreneurs, is like, you could be, like, if you're a poker player, right? You could be a really, really top world-class poker player. And if you go and play on a table with, I don't know, really highly skilled people as well, your chances of success there might be lower, but the rewards, if you're the number one, might be higher. Or you might go to a different table, and there's like really rich people who are bad at poker, and you can make much more money because you're just playing at a different table. And so sometimes it's not the player themselves, but the table or the game that they're playing.
The category.
And the category is, in our example.
So finding the right industry that can take over.
Fan bites, right? Yeah. Right place, right time, amazing execution, incredible team, like, so on it. But like, had the founders instead decided to set up a totally different company in a totally different industry, would they have been as successful? Probably they would have still been successful, but would they have the same level of success? There's countless examples. Professor Scott Galloway named one, which was he set up a consulting business on like how to harness the power of the internet at the sort of outset of the internet. So it's like, he had like all this expertise and relevance to big companies who were like, how are we going to use the internet? And, the rise of the internet meant that, like, person who's great at executing, clearly very clever, but also like with the right market conditions and everything. So I guess it's just important to realize, as well as like trying your best and reading books and listening to podcasts, you've got to pick the right timing, and there's so much luck involved.
I also think it's important to just take all these ideas, take all this advice, and just merge it into what is relevant to you. Because there's, like you said, there's so much advice, whether people are going to take yours 2 years in, 10 years in, whatever is relevant to you, you just have to take it and just pinpoint it, I think. Spiderweb.
Well, I was going to ask, probably my last question for me would be, what is success to you? What does it mean to be successful?
I would say we want to scale the company. We've taken institutional funding, so I think success, part of it is scaling the company in a way that delivers better oral care products to more people. That is one form of success. So you could say the monetary rise of the company and also shareholders. I think success ultimately is the enjoyment of the process and the journey. Like Mark and I always talk, like, if we are one of those companies, in 10 years, have we enjoyed the journey? Have we built something that we would do again if we had the chance? And I would say that is success to us. And it's not a binary moment of like, we hit the target, we didn't hit the target. It's more how's that journey of 10 years? Was that successful or not? And so that's what I would say is the success to us. And so while we probably aren't at the targets we need to be at, what we want to grow to, and we're growing well, I'd say we feel that we are having success in what we're doing.
For me, it's very similar with some slight differences. Like success for me is truly like the quality of my relationships. Like that is my number one metric for success: the quality of relationship with my children, with my wife, with my family, with my friends, with my colleagues, with my co-founder. Like ultimately, maybe the company will be successful, maybe it won't. But the thing that I relish the most and that is most important to me is the quality of those relationships, followed by like how I spend my time and like, do I enjoy spending my time? And because we have a very strong purpose, we really genuinely want to reduce the carbon emissions created from our industry. We want to do something tangible to shift the industry, to make other manufacturers think, oh, maybe we will use plant-based materials or offer free recycling or design our products in a way that they can be, reused and recycled more effectively. That combination of building quality relationships is sometimes at odds with how much we work, but having a purpose just drives me to enjoy every moment and to relish the time I do spend with those people.
I think those are good answers and very fitting, opposite, good, complementary answers, I think.
Wait, your success is not growing the company?
That's why you have two. Two definitions of success.
I'm wondering if we're allowed to keep these because, or you just brought them here just for,
Just eye candy.
We thought about just using them.
We did have a question, so we want to check if you've been listening really well. So if you can answer this question, you can choose a brush.
Okay.
Are you guys ready?
Dibs on that one.
On which one?
the white one.
Okay.
Oh, geez.
Which brand of electric toothbrush is by far the most highly rated on Trustpilot?
SURI.
Yes! 5,500. I remember.
Numbers, too.
5,500.
We're good listeners.
We do this for a living.
Yeah, clearly.
Okay, it's yours.
I've been
Let us know
interviewing
what you
people
think.
for the last decade, so I'd like to think. Oh, thank you.
Brilliant.
You said you wanted the white one?
Yeah.
So I'll give you the black one then.
Thank you. No, but
Thanks, guys. Bye, Siri.
Yeah, I think this is a great chat. There's a lot of advice. Like you said, I hope people can come back to this in 8 years. Do podcasts really last 8 years long? They'll come back to this in 8 years. You guys will hit that 10-year mark, and they'll be able to hear about what you guys have been doing in the first 2 years, which is what I think is really important, talking to startups and scale-ups. Once you're 10 years in down the line, you might not talk about what you just talked about today.
Talk to us next month.
Yes, I mean, you kind of close off as you go down that, you deal with all those growing pains and you do that. So I think it's really interesting to highlight both. And, in 8 years.
I know I've talked a lot about this and maybe I'm feeling philosophical, but we are all just learning and living. The only thing that we have is a passage of time, and we are genuinely making it up. We don't know any more than you do to an extent on how to grow a toothbrush company, other than our previous experience and the fact that we work on it every day. Hopefully it'll work. Maybe it won't, but we're going to try our hardest to enjoy it and to make it work. So
And we're definitely not making it up.
Exactly, right?
He's like, don't say that on camera.
You said it 3 times.
We're definitely making it. We'll make the most out of it.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be my first time using an electric toothbrush.
That's a milestone.
Yeah, so this is a big moment in my life. I can't wait to get home tonight and have a really sloppy Joe dinner and just, grind it out. I want to see how it actually works and if it'll make my smile brighter.
Yeah.
Read the instructions, QR code shows you video and everything.
Oh,
because technique's important, really important. It's different than other brands too.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's great.
Well, and when your baby brushes come out, I'll look and see if there's a Paddington.
They didn't say they were launching a baby. Although they gave each other the look.
Paddington, Paddington, let's talk.
Let's talk collaboration. Brilliant.
Thank you guys for coming. It was really a pleasure having you.
Yeah,
a pleasure.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.